Good evening, friends. Wow, the room is so full. It's so wonderful enjoying your company in this great conference. Had the pleasure of meeting with the conference committee earlier, and it's been such a wonderful gathering these past few days. Could you dim the lights? It's very bright up here. There we go. So many friends there. That's so much better. Okay, so we are in our third session this evening. In our first evening session, we talked about transformation of character and this principle of transformation of character that has been brought about by all the manifestations of God. And this principle is at the very heart of the revelation of God, that every man has to change his character, his inner life and outer life, to reflect these qualities and attributes that these divine teachers have been speaking about. So, in our last session, we talked about some of these qualities, such as sincerity and truthfulness. And we have also been highlighting these individuals, such as Baha'i. In our first session, we talked about Baha'i, the pride of the martyrs, the example that he led. And in our second session, it was such a pleasure that you were able to join us. In the second session, we talked about the twin shining lights of Isfahan, the king of martyrs and the beloved of martyrs. And in this session, friends, we're going to talk about connecting our hearts, connecting to our inner reality. That is how I'll put it, connecting to our inner reality, as well as the spiritual prerequisites of growth. So these are two themes that I'm talking about today, connecting to our inner reality and the spiritual prerequisites of growth. As well as, friends, we'll also be sharing a story of the life of May Maxwell, an incredible soul. And friends, I share these stories of these friends as examples of these heroines and heroes and individuals that have risen in their rank in the service of this cause as examples, so that we as individuals can work on transformation of our character to emulate their examples. Truly an incredible soul was May Maxwell. So I will share that story with you at the close of my talk today. So you can leave hearing her life and legacy, and so you can have that as a gift ongoing. And friends, we intimately should learn the stories of the heroes, the heroines, the martyrs, the hands of the cause of God, intimately. Really know their stories, their lives, so that, as I said, that we can learn to emulate them. Of course, we should know the life and history of the central figures of the cause. And obviously, the beloved Master is our exemplar. But these other heroes, such as I'm sharing with these martyrs, May Maxwell as a heroine of the faith, Martha Root, incredible friends. We should learn their stories, recite their stories, know their stories intimately, and share them with our children, and know these stories very well, so that we can learn from their accounts of their experiences. These were people too. They were not superheroes. They were just regular people like you and I, with sicknesses and health, but they arose. They were obedient, and they arose in time when there was very little communications, very little books, and yet they arose. So friends, this is something that I'm going to share with you as a gift so that we can spend time in our lives, read, learn their examples, and then implement their examples in our lives so that we can work on this transformation of character, work on it, and work to become an individual that tomorrow is better than yesterday. This is what it is to be a Baha'i. So, without any further ado, I'm going to go into some quotes that I've chosen for this session on connecting our hearts, connecting to our inner reality. That is what I said. I apologize. Connecting to our inner reality. And the second portion of the talk, it's all tied together, friends, is I wanted to talk about the spiritual requisites of growth. It's all connected and tied together. The entire theme of my talks from day one is transformation of character. And so now I'm talking about connecting to our inner reality and spiritual requisites of growth. So this is what we'll talk about in this evening session, friends. So the first quote I'm pulling is from Selections from the Writings of Abdul-Baha, page 10. Abdul-Baha states, the most vital duty in this day, friends, in this day is to purify your characters, to correct your manners, and improve your conduct. The beloved of the merciful must show forth such character and conduct amongst his creatures that the fragrance of their holiness may shed upon the whole world, and may quicken the dead, inasmuch as the purpose of the manifestation of God and the dawning of the limitless signs of the invisible is to educate the souls of men and refine the character of every living man, so that blessed individuals who have freed themselves from the murk of the animal world shall rise up with those qualities which are the adornings of the reality of man. The purpose is that earthlings should turn into the people of heaven, and those who walk in the darkness should come into the light, and those who are excluded should join the inner circle of the kingdom, and those who are as nothing should become intimates of the everlasting glory. It is that the portionless should gain their share of the boundless sea, and the ignorant drink their fill from the living fount of knowledge, that those who thirst for blood should forsake their drink, and those who thirst for blood should forsake their savagery, and those who are barbed of claw should turn gentle and forbearing, and those who love war should seek instead for true conciliation. It is that the brutal, their talons razor sharp, should enjoy the benefits of lasting peace, that the foul should learn that there is a realm of purity, and that the tainted find their way to the rivers of holiness. Unless these divine bestowals be revealed from the inner self of humankind, the bounty of the manifestation will prove barren, and the dazzling rays of the Sun of Truth will have no effect whatever. Unbelievable. The most vital duty in this day is the purification of the character, to correct the manners and improve the conduct. Abdul-Baha. Abdul-Baha goes on again. He says, this is in page 37, Selections from the Writings of Abdul-Baha. He states These are the counsels of Abdul Baha. These are the counsels of Abdul Baha. It is my hope that out of the bestowals of the Lord of hosts, ye will become the spiritual essence and the very radiance of humankind, binding the hearts of all with bonds of love, that through the power of the word of God, ye will bring to life the dead, now buried in the graves of their sensual desires, that ye will, with the rays of the Sun of Truth, restore the sight of those whose inner eye is blind, that ye will bring spiritual healing to the spiritually sick. These things do I hope for, out of the bounties and the bestowals of the Beloved. That is from Abdul Baha. It's that ye become the divine physicians. You become the healers by your words, your action, your deeds, the transformation of your character, your lives, and through your work to purify yourselves, correcting your manners, improving your conduct. This is what Abdul Baha is stating in these paragraphs, that you, through this transformation, will become an agent of change, that you will be able to teach through example, that you will be able to, as he says, restore sight in those whose inner sight is blind. You will be able to give life to the dead now buried in the graves of their sensual desires. That you, friends, that you will be able to rise. This is what Abdul Baha is talking about. So we go to another extract that I've selected, friends. Abdul Baha again. This is also from selections from the writings of Abdul Baha. This is in page 275. It is my hope that the breaths of the Holy Spirit will so be breathed into your hearts. Friends, this is incredible. I hope you feel this. I really hope you feel it. Now think, here we go. Again, Abdul Baha, page 275, selections from the writings of Abdul Baha. It is my hope that the breaths of the Holy Spirit will so be breathed into your hearts that your tongues will disclose the mysteries and set forth and expound the inner meanings of the holy books, that the friends will become physicians and will, through the potent medicine of the heavenly teachings, heal the long-standing diseases that afflict the body of the world, that they will make the blind to see, the deaf to hear, the dead to come to alive, and that they will awaken those who are sound asleep. Again, Abdul Baha saying that this is necessary, this transformation of character, necessary, vital, integral, so essential, so that you will become this teacher of the cause through your example, so that you will heal the long-standing diseases that afflict the body of this world, that you will be this physician that Abdul Baha is talking about, that will help and make the blind to see. You will make the deaf hear. This is the deaf of the heart. Their heart is deaf. That they are spiritually dead. And by your words, reflecting the qualities and attributes and divine qualities that Baha'u'llah is addressing, that your words, the words brought by the revelation of Baha'u'llah, affect their heart and bring the dead to come to life, that they will awaken those who are sound asleep. Now this is what Abdul Baha is addressing in page 275 of selections from the writings of Abdul Baha. Friends, incredibly powerful. This is what he is getting at. Friends, we go to Rezvan message. This is from the Universal House of Justice. Rezvan message, 1988. These are just selections, as if a compilation, on the theme of connecting to your inner reality. Friends, how can you, as an individual, reach a level of transformation. This is what the whole theme of my talks with you at this great conference, this meeting of souls and hearts on this theme is. In this extract from the Universal House of Justice, the House of Justice, supreme body, states every individual believer, incredible, every individual believer, man, woman, youth, and child. They didn't leave anyone out. Every individual believer, man, woman, youth, and child is summoned to this field of action. For it is on the initiative, the resolute will of the individual to teach and to serve that the success of the entire community depends. Well grounded in the mighty covenant of Baha'u'llah, sustained by daily prayer and reading of the Holy Word, strengthened by a continual striving to obtain a deeper understanding of the divine teachings, illumined by a constant endeavor to relate these teachings to current issues, nourished by observance of the laws and principles of His wondrous world order, every individual can attain increasing measures of success in teaching. In sum, the ultimate triumph of the cause is assured by that one thing and only one thing, so poignantly emphasized by Shoghi Effendi, namely the extent to which our inner life and private character mirror forth in their manifold aspects the splendor of those eternal principles proclaimed by Baha'u'llah. And this is from the Universal House of Justice, Rizwan 1988, to the Baha'is of the world. Calling every individual believer, man, woman, youth, and child to the field of action. Calling them to the field of action in teaching, service, prayer, deepening themselves in the teachings, in the divine teachings, calling the friends to study the writings, calling the friends to pray, calling the friends to meditate, calling the friends to serve. This is what the Universal House of Justice is in this message is stating. And then at the very end, he says, again, the entire ultimate triumph of the cause is assured by that one thing and only one thing. The entire ultimate triumph of the cause is assured by that one thing and only one thing. And what is that one thing and only one thing? It's that transformation of character we talked about. The God-beloved guardian says, the extent to which our inner life and private character mirror forth in their manifold aspects the splendor of those eternal principles proclaimed by Baha'u'llah. Friends, again, at the very, very epicenter of the heart of the revelation of Baha'u'llah is this aspect of transformation of character. So vital, integral, and important it is. Friends, we go to another extract. This is from the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, and this is in the book The Unfolding Destiny of the British Baha'i Community, page 406. These are the letters to the United Kingdom. The guardian feels should study more deeply the teachings and meditate on what he studies. We liken God to the sun, which gives us all our life. So the Spirit of God reaches us through the souls of the manifestations. We must learn to commune with their souls. And this is what the martyrs seem to have done, and what brought them such ecstasy of joy, that life became nothing. This is the true mysticism and the secret, inner meaning of life, which humanity has at present drifted so far from. Incredible, friends. Now, what the beloved guardian is saying, we should really study deeply and meditate deeply the lives of the manifestations of God and the teachings of the manifestation of God. We should study deeply the teachings and meditate on what he studies. He says, so the Spirit of God reaches us through the souls of the manifestations. He says, this is what true mysticism and the secret inner meaning of life which humanity has at present drifted so far from. This is from the beloved guardian, friends. This is what I wanted to share with you, is that how important it is to read, and not just read casually as like a storybook, but read deeply. And we'll be getting into some of these essential requisites, and I'll be talking about how we should pray, how we should read, how we should teach, and how we should strive and meditate and serve, how we should do these things. And so these are the 6 essential requisites the Universal House of Justice talks about. Okay? But these are, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But let's go into our next quote, friends. Hope you're enjoying our time together. And so let's just go into our next quote. This quote starts off rather sad. It says, the dark horizon faced by a world which has failed to recognize the promised one, the source of its salvation, acutely affects the outlook of the younger generations. Their distressing lack of hope and their indulgence in desperate but futile and even dangerous solutions make a direct claim on the remedial attention of Baha'i youth, who, through their knowledge of that source and their bright vision with which they have thus been endowed, cannot hesitate to impart to their despairing fellow youth the restorative joy, the constructive hope, the radiant assurances of Baha'u'llah's stupendous revelation, the words, the deeds, the attitudes, the lack of prejudice, the nobility of character, the high sense of service to others, in a word, those qualities and actions. Friends, this is incredible, unbelievable. The words, the deeds, the attitudes, the lack of prejudice, the nobility of character, the high sense of service to others. In a word, those qualities and actions which distinguish a Baha'i must unfailingly characterize their inner life and outer behavior, and their interactions with friend or foe. Now, this is from the Universal House of Justice, dated 1985, and this was a letter, May 8th, to the Baha'i youth of the world. Let's read that part again. So it characterized the state of the world, the dark horizon. Then it said that these Baha'i youth should be luminous. And how should they be luminous? They should have this bright vision which they have thus been endowed. They cannot hesitate to impart to their despairing fellow youth the restorative joy, the constructive hope, the radiant assurances of Baha'u'llah's stupendous revelation. And how are they imparting this? Friends, they're teaching. They're presenting their example. And this example is a teaching in itself. Now, How does it say how to present? Their words, their deeds, their attitudes, and their lack of prejudice, their nobility of character, the high sense of service to others, in a word, those qualities and actions which distinguish a Baha'i must unfailingly characterize their inner life and outer behavior and their interactions with friend or foe. This is how the Universal House of Justice says the youth should teach. Their words and their behavior, their example, their actions, all of it is a reflection of the standard of that faith. And it's for all Baha'is, but this letter was addressed to the youth. And that was a letter, as mentioned, 1985 from the Universal House of Justice. Friends, my last extract with you I'm sharing tonight, before I go into the portion of talk I've allocated to requisites on spiritual growth. All of these it's tied together, but this is an extract from the Universal House of Justice. The House of Justice states, the foundation of your preparation to meet the many unforeseeable changes that will come about rests with your determination and ability to internalize and act upon the divine principles expounded in the literature of our faith. Principles which direct one's inner development and private character, and which guide one's active life of teaching and service. These make for a righteous life, the wellspring of progress for the individual and society as a whole, the harbinger of the very triumph of the cause of God. I repeat, this is very powerful and important, friends. I want you to grasp the inner significances of these extracts. It says, the foundation of your preparation to meet the unforeseeable changes that will come about rests with your determination and ability. Determination and ability to internalize and act upon the divine principles expounded in the literature of our faith. How much you can act and internalize on the divine principles in the literature of the faith. And what does it say? It says principles which direct one's inner development and private character, and which guides one active life of teaching and service. So it's about the inner life, transformation of the character, and then that transformation of our external conditions to a life of service and teaching. These make for a righteous life, the wellspring of progress for the individual and society as a whole, the harbinger of the very triumph of the cause of God. This is a letter from the House of Justice dated December 22nd, 1994. Okay, friends. At this time, I'm going to share with you some essential requisites for spiritual growth. Okay, and this was a letter on behalf of the Universal House of Justice dated September 1st, 1983. And before I go into the essential requisites for spiritual growth, I want to go through what does essential mean, what does requisites mean, And what does even spiritual mean? So let us go through this. Let's really go into this, and so that, friends, we can really break this down, study it deeply. Okay, what does essential mean? Essential means constituting or being part of the essence of something, inherent, basic, or indispensable, necessary. Okay? Indispensable, vital, inherent. These are what essential means. Okay? Now let's go to our next word. Our next word is requisite. Okay, so it's essential, requisites. Now what does requisite mean? Requisite is something that is also indispensable. So essential, requisites. So essentials are already meaning it's vital. Right? Something, and we said constituting or being part of the essence of something. So, something that is at the very essence, basic or indispensable, something that you cannot do without. Now, requisite is something that is also indispensable, a requirement. Now, requisite means a requirement. Something that is indispensable, a requirement. So, essential requirements, something you cannot do without. Okay? Now, what does spiritual mean? So we'll talk about this all the time. We don't often think about what does actually definition mean. Of or relating to or affecting the human spirit, the soul, as opposed to material or physical things. Not concerned with material values or pursuits, of or relating to religion or religious belief. So those are the definitions in American Heritage Dictionary. Okay? So, very simple, straightforward, of or relating to affecting the human spirit or soul. So we're talking about something vital and something essential. And this essential, which was, that we mentioned, was indispensable, necessary, and this requisite is indispensable and is a requirement, and it is also spiritual. So now we got this concept of essential requisites of spiritual growth. So what are they? So, and from where do these 6 essential requisites come? As mentioned, the Universal House of Justice identified the 6 essential requisites for spiritual growth in a letter dated September 1st, 1983. Okay? And who gave the essential requisites for spiritual growth? In the letter it says Baha'u'llah has stated quite clearly in his writings the essential requisites for our spiritual growth. And these are stressed again and again by Abdul Baha in his talks and tablets. They represent the path towards the attainment of true spirituality that has been laid down by the manifestation of God for this age. So the first one is the recital each day of one of the obligatory prayers with pure-hearted devotion. The next one is the regular reading of the sacred scriptures, specifically at least each morning and evening, with reverence, attention, and thought. The third spiritual requisite is prayerful meditation on the teachings so that we may understand them more deeply, fulfill them more faithfully, and convey them more accurately to others. The fourth essential requisite for spiritual growth, striving every day to bring our behavior more into accordance with the high standards that are set forth in the teachings. The fifth is teaching the cause of God. And the sixth is selfless service in the work of the cause and in the carrying on of our trade or profession. Okay. I will read those again, friends, as we go through them. But these are, I recommend you each go find this letter written on behalf of the Universal House of Justice dated September 1st, 1983. Essential requisites for spiritual growth. Read it, meditate on it, study it. This is something that should be on everyone's refrigerator, on everyone's, and reflect, meditate every day. How am I every day reciting my obligatory prayers with pure-hearted devotion? Am I every day regular reading of the sacred scriptures at every morning and evening, with reverence, attention, and thought? Every day am I prayerfully meditating on the teachings so that we may understand them more deeply and fulfill them more faithfully. Every day am I striving, every day, this says every day, to bring our behavior more into accordance with the high standards that are set forth in the teachings. And every day, friends, are we teaching the cause of God. And every day am I selflessly serving in the work of the cause and carrying on the trade or our profession. This is the blueprint. This is the blueprint that Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, has put together for spiritual progress. This is what it is. If you as an individual want to spiritually progress, this is it. This is it. In this dispensation, if you want to spiritually progress, these are the spiritual prerequisites that are vital. So let's go through them. A simple acronym, okay, friends, that to remember them is PRISMS. 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 Okay? The first one is pray. And what are we praying? It's the recital each day of one of the obligatory prayers with pure-hearted devotion. P for pray. Okay? The word is PRISMS. 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 The second is R, and that is for read. Okay? And as you recall, every day is the regular reading of the sacred scriptures, specifically at least each morning and evening, with reverence, attention, and thought. So this is for read. It's an acronym, friends. So PRISMS. Just have that word in your mind. PRISMS. PRISMS. Every day. Am I doing my PRISMS? And PRISMS, am I doing my PRISMS? So P is for prayer. Have I done my obligatory prayer today? Have I recited? Have I turned towards my Lord today? Okay. If I have, fantastic. Now, R in PRISMS is recite, the read. Have I read the writings, the sacred scriptures today, in the morning and the evening, with reverence, attention, and thought? Now, what is the I for? The I we put here is for instruct. It's for so instruct, okay? And this is for teaching the cause. Teaching the cause. Okay, instruct is / teach. So this is for teaching the cause. Have I taught the cause? Have I gone out and tried to teach the cause today? Have I tried to connect hearts to Baha'u'llah today? Have I opened my mouth today in praise of Baha'u'llah? So this is teaching the cause of God. And the letter that we used is I for instruct. Okay? So P-R-I. Now next is S. And the word here is strive. And the word the House of Justice uses striving. Every day. Strive. It takes effort. It's not an easy thing. It takes incredible effort and time. Strive every day to bring our behavior more into accordance with the high standards that are set forth in the teachings. So we have already done P, we've done R for read, we've done I for instruct, which is teaching the cause of God. We've done S for strive, striving every day to bring our behavior more into accordance with the high standards that are set forth in the teachings. Now we're at M, because the word is prisms. It's an acronym for the 6 essential requisites for spiritual growth. Now M is for meditate. Friends, we need to meditate on the writings. This is what it says. It says prayerful meditation on the writings. Prayerful meditation on the writings, on the teachings, so that we may understand them more deeply, fulfill them more faithfully, and convey them more accurately to others. So that we may understand them more deeply and fulfill them more faithfully and convey them more accurately to others. And the last letter is S, because it's prisms. And S is for serve. And as you know, the 6th essential requisite is selfless service in the work of the cause and in the carrying on of our trade or profession. So pray, read, instruct, strive, meditate, serve. The acronym is PRISMS. Okay, so that is, and as you know, a prism is a triangular prism, can separate white light into its constituent colors by refracting each different wavelength of light by a different amount. But in this analogy, these requisites are like a prism. They take the white light of God or the Holy Spirit and make it visible to us in the colors of the spectrum. Through them, we get to see, experience, reflect, and know God. Each requisite creates or reveals a different color. Together they combine to create pure light that illumines our souls and the true path to spirituality. So friends, let us go into what these requisites are. So we talked about the first one, prayer. So what is prayer? Prayer is supplication, spiritual communion, and conversation with God. It's like rain pouring down on a plant. And as we know, I'm not going to go into every quote, and there's compilations on prayer, there's compilations on teachings, there's myriad of writings. I'm just going at a very general level on each one of these. I know I've already signaled for time, and I haven't even gotten to our story, friends, that I'm so keen to share with you on the heroic life of our dear May Maxwell. So, what is prayer? It is supplication, spiritual communion, and conversation with God. It's like rain pouring down on a plant, and as we know, the highest prayer is for the love and will of God. And here, in this essential requisites, it talks about the recital each day of one of the obligatory prayers with pure-hearted devotion. Okay? So this is interesting. Here's another acronym. So how should we say one of the obligatory prayers each day according to the instructions given? With a PhD. So how do we do it? How do we recite our obligatory prayers? With a PhD. Pure-hearted devotion. Or with purity, humility, and detachment. Pure-hearted devotion. In a private and free from care, combined with love, meditation, thought, and action. And we should direct our prayers to God through the manifestations. Okay, so how do we recite our obligatory prayers? With a PhD, pure-hearted devotion. Okay, now the regular reading of the sacred scriptures, specifically at least each morning and evening. This prime requisite is the eagerness and love of sanctified souls to read the Word of God, to read one verse or even one word in a spirit of joy and radiance is preferable to the perusal of many books. And that's from Kitab Ahdas. It says even reading one verse or even one word in a spirit of joy and radiance is preferable to the perusal of many books. But this says recital and reading of the verses every morning and every evening. So why read? It's to be endowed with new life, understanding, and ability to feel, to think, and act better, to open our hearts, which in reality are the doors of heaven. To discover these pearls of great price, to solve problems, and to be faithful to the covenant of God and of service to humanity. Now, how should we read? This is all there, friends. Everything is there. How should we read? Okay, let's go back to the quote. It's right there. He says, at least each morning and evening with reverence, attention, and thought. This is straight from the quote. So how should we read? We should remember the acronym RAT. R-A-T. Okay? R-A-T. RAT. Okay, not the... it's not the... It's funny, these acronyms. But reverence, attention, thought. What is reverence? Admiration, veneration. Attention is concentration, consideration. And thought is reflection and contemplation. So, friends, how should we read the writings? It says, the regular reading of the sacred scriptures, specifically at least each morning and evening, it says here, with reverence, attention, and thought. It's not my words, this is from Universal House of Justice. Reverence, attention, and thought. So, acronym here is RAT. R-A-T. How should you read the writings? RAT. Okay? Read so not to overcome by languor and despondency, but rather to lighten and uplift the soul. So this is also, read so not to overcome by languor. So do not overburden yourself. Oh, I have to read 200 pages tonight, and I'm just like, No, do not overcome yourself. And then you become angry and despondent and, I don't want to read anymore. I'm too tired of this. But rather to lighten and uplift your soul, that you thirst for it. This is how we should read the writings. Now, let's go into meditation. And what is meditation? Prayer is talking to a higher power. Meditation is listening to it. Okay? Meditation is listening to it. Speaking with our own spirit. Putting questions to it. And receiving answers. Like a mirror reflects what it is turned to. Pondering in our hearts the sacred scriptures and tasting their sweetness. This is so important, friends, that we do all of these 6. So vital. Cannot stress this enough. So, why meditate? Why should we meditate? So that we may understand the teachings more deeply, fulfill them more faithfully, and convey them more accurately to others. To remember, think of the acronym CUF. Friends, yes, these are acronyms. Here's another one. CUF is like the cuff of your sleeve. CUFF. Okay? The first one is convey more accurately. Someone asks, why, what is the need to meditate? To convey the teachings more accurately. Then U is understand them more deeply. Then F is fulfill them more faithfully. And so fulfill is one of them, and faithfully is another F. So fulfill more faithfully. Okay? So that is CUF. Convey more accurately, understand more deeply, and fulfill more faithfully. CUF. For inspiration and knowledge about unknowns, sciences, arts, and inventions. Another reason to meditate is for inspiration, for knowledge about unknowns, sciences, arts, and inventions. Now, how should we meditate? Baha'u'llah has specified no procedures to be followed in meditation. Only in privacy. And we should use the greatest name or scriptures. And we should guard against ego, idle fancies, vain imaginations, superstitions, or foolish ideas. And we should turn away from world and turn towards God. Now, strive. So what was strive? This was the S. If you recall, the word was prisms. So what is strive? Strive was striving every day to bring our behavior more into accordance with the high standards that are set forth in the teachings. So strive, as we strive to integrate the spiritual standards, the principles and practices into our daily lives and behavior, transformative forces act upon our souls, purging, purifying, and sanctifying them. It is a source of prosperity and develops us morally and spiritually. Now, why should we strive? This is to increase our love for, knowledge of, and nearness to God. Again, I'm going to say this. To increase our love for, our knowledge of, and nearness to God. To achieve greater understanding, meaning, fulfillment, purpose, happiness, joy, power, love, purity, radiance, and efficiency of character. Abiding by spiritual laws and principles, like physical laws, is essential for well-being and happiness. Now, how to strive? It's these are all incredible requisites. So, but how should we strive to bring every day bring our behavior more into accordance? So, these are things that are also stated in the writings. It says, turn every stumbling block into a stepping stone. Make problems and overcoming tests a means for improving character, spiritual development, and happiness. Set goals and make daily effort to improve. Do not dwell on the faults and failings of others. Instead, discover the root out and root out our own. Sorry, it was a comment. Do not dwell on the faults and failings of others. Instead, discover and root out our own. And so importantly, bring yourself to account each day. Bring yourself to account each day. This, friends, is how we can strive every day to bring our behavior more into accordance. Every day, dear friends, we need to bring ourselves to account. Am I a better Ehsan than I was yesterday? How can I be a better Ehsan tomorrow? What can I do to transform my character, to transform who I am? What qualities and attributes should I work on today so that tomorrow will be a better Ehsan? Have I recited my obligatory prayers? Every day this should be foremost on your thoughts and behaviors. So much so that it is a love that it's not something that you have to think about. It's something that is just love. It's who you are. You cannot help by doing it. It's just who you are. And it's just as often we have to have reminders to go to the doctor's office, right? We have to have reminders to go to the doctor's office, because going to the doctors, we have to go to the doctors for our medical appointments and everything, and they're important. And so we set reminders for ourselves. We don't, how much more important are these requisites to put reminders for our obligatory prayers? But as friends, sometimes we don't even do that. But put a reminder for obligatory prayers if we are not in the habit. Put a reminder in your phone that have you done your obligatory prayer today, the noonday prayer? Have you done if you have missed that, have you put a reminder for the 24-hour, the long obligatory prayer? Put a reminder in your phone so that this can be part of your habit. And when it's part of your habit, you cannot help but do it, because the recital becomes this love affair with your Lord. It is a mystical thing that you turn to your Lord. I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. I testify at this moment. It is a love that you are turning to your Lord, and in a sense of humility, and in that sense of resignation and sense of humility, turning to your Lord in that level of prostration and saying, I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. This is what it is. And every day turning to your heart to the epicenter of the creation of the world, to this light, Baha'u'llah. Have you recited your the readings every morning and evening? Now, if you haven't, as I said, put a reminder in your phone, friends, till it becomes habit. This is what it is. Habit. Creating this habits. Because striving is this, as I said, bringing yourself account each day. Okay? And this is a process. It takes time. It takes effort. And if we are not doing it regularly, we miss it, right? We miss it. And then we miss it again, we miss it again, we miss it again. And then we're like, we'll go to another conference. I remember. And then remember. Then, there's so many things in our lives. And then we forget about it. And I read a nice reading, and then... but that's how life is, friends. But we need to create habit. And habit, it's so that as it becomes so who you are as a Baha'i, it cannot distinguish who you are. And so our social life and we cannot separate. If I ask, who is Ehsan? who is Ehsan? And you say, Ehsan is a lover of Baha'u'llah. Ehsan is, and they list these qualities and attributes. You say, Ehsan is an individual who recites obligatory prayer. But these are all in private. You don't know these. But this is, I'm just giving an example. And Ehsan is someone who recites the readings and sacred scriptures every morning and evening. And Ehsan is someone who strives every day to bring his behavior into accordance with the high standards that are set out forth in the teachings. And Ehsan is someone who is dedicating his life to teaching the cause of God and selfless service in the work of the cause of God. So these are who you become. This is about, it becomes part and parcel of your character. And this is love, friends. Love. And how do you attain this love of Baha'u'llah? And this is in studying, friends. And I talked about this in a little bit in the second session. It was our morning session. And how do you become in love? And I talked about this as you are courting someone. And the more you get to know them, friends, the more you get to know them, the more you get closer to them, the more your heart starts opening up, and your heart starts beating a little faster, and your heart gets a little bit, you get a little bit red on the cheek, and you start getting excited. Friends, we need to dive into these writings so much, and we need to pour our hearts into them, friends. And that's what it says. The regular reading of the sacred scriptures every morning and evening. Okay? But also, we need to meditate, friends. Meditate. And it's in the sense of prayerful meditation, so that we may understand them more deeply, fulfill them more faithfully, and convey them more accurately. Okay, so these are some of the things that I wanted to stress. Now we're at. I'm sorry, went off on a tangent, and I'm getting another signal on time. I know, friends. I know. We'll close when we close. Okay, so now we're at I. Okay. So, as I said, this is for the acronym PRISMS. Okay? PRISMS, I was for instruct. And the universal sense was for teaching the cause of God. And what is teaching the cause of God? It is the highest form of service to another soul. It is a spiritual process that requires spiritual preparation, qualities, and actions. And in the gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'llah, page 289, it states, if ye be aware of a certain truth, if ye possess a jewel of which others are deprived, share it with them in a language of utmost kindness and goodwill. Now, friends, why teach? There's so many reasons. And I'm just going to share just a few of them, and these are not from the quotes, but you can hear the quotes, talking through them. It says, humanity is suffering and seeking a remedy. Those who have it should share it with others. We should teach to build capacity, and to teach is to learn. And teaching is the greatest gift of God. And teaching is the most meritorious of all deeds. Not only is teaching beneficial to us, but teaching is beneficial to all of humanity. So, now, how do we teach? And friends, there's compilations and letters, examples of Abdul Baha on teaching, so much on teaching, as well as service and prayer and meditation. And this, friends, we need to study. And I'm just giving you just touches touches and tastes of these things. And I urge you to go into each one of these 6 requisites that I'm highlighting tonight. And this is from the September 1st, 1983 letter from the Universal House of Justice. And put this on your fridge or on your mirror, and have this in front of your face. Am I doing these every day? And if I'm not, how can I implement these every day into my life? Now, how do we teach? He says, when the will and the desire are strong enough. This is from the Beloved Guardian. He says, when the will and the desire are strong enough, the mean will be found and the way opened. When the will and the desire are strong enough. Do you have the will and the desire to teach? Do you have the will and the desire? Are they strong enough? Are you burning to teach the cause of God? Are you praying to teach the cause of God? Are you studying, meditating on the writings, increasing your knowledge, striving to bring your behavior more into accordance to be a better reflection and mirror forth the manifold qualities put forth by the revelation of Baha'u'llah, so that even your actions and behaviors are a semblance of teaching the cause of God? Are you serving in the work of the cause? Friends, this is how to teach. He says, before all else, teach your own self. This is from Gleanings. He says, before all else, teach your own self. He says, the intention of the teacher must be pure. Again, here's sincerity. Remember? Foundation. The foundation stone of faith. The intention of the teacher must be pure. Purity. His heart independent, his spirit attracted, his thought at peace, his resolution firm, his magnanimity exalted, and in the love of God a shining torch. Now friends, that's from Tablets of Divine Plan, page 54, Abdul Baha. The intention of the teacher must be pure, his heart independent, his spirit attracted, his thought at peace, his resolution firm, his magnanimity exalted, and in the love of God a shining torch. And friends, last but not least, service. And what is it? We've talked about prayer. We talked about reading of the writings, meditation on the writings, striving to bring our behavior into accordance with the standards in the faith. We talked about teaching the cause of God. Now we're talking about selfless service. Now, it's not just service, it's selfless service. Selfless service in the work of the cause and in the carrying on of our trade or profession. This is the quote. Selfless service in the work of the cause and in the carrying on of our trade or profession. So, service in our work and cause is a form of prayer and worship, and service to humanity is a service to God. And why should we serve? The effects of prayer, meditation, and reading are not significant unless translated into service. It is essential to our personal welfare and spiritual growth. It is a magnet that brings success and confirmation. Service is the noblest deed, the greatest blessing, and highest righteousness. Now, how should we serve? We have myriad of examples, including our beloved exemplar, how to serve. We should expand our service from serving self to serving our family, then to our community, and finally to the humanity. We should be guided by a higher power, the purpose, our cause. We should practice the golden rule, selflessly serve. We should serve with love, pure motives, and excellence to the best of our ability for the greatest good. We should think at all times of rendering service. Again, our exemplar, Abdul Baha. How can we bring ourselves more into service? How can we bring ourselves more into teaching the cause of God? How can we bring ourselves more in striving each day to bring our behavior more into accordance with these high standards that are set forth in the teachings? And lastly, it says the house of justice is confident. This is at the conclusion of this letter. It says the house of justice, the supreme body, is confident that if the believers will conscientiously strive to increase their spirituality in the 6 ways outlined above, and become aware in their inmost beings that in all their services they are but vehicles for the confirming power of God, they will, this is so amazing, friends, they will attract the hearts of their fellow citizens and penetrate the miasma of materialism that veils the sight of so many of their countrymen. The miasma of materialism that veils the sight of so many of their countrymen. Effort, activity, unity, and constant reliance on the power of Baha'u'llah will assuredly overcome all obstacles. Effort, activity, unity, and constant reliance on the power of Baha'u'llah. Okay, very good, friends. So just to recap, there was acronym on prisms. So there was prayer. And then, does anyone recall? Prayer, that's right. Then read, instruct, strive, meditate, and lastly, selfless service. The service. Okay? So, prisms. And as we mentioned, how should we pray? How should we pray? We said, with a PhD. And this is for how we should recite our obligatory prayers. With a PhD. And it's not to, having a PhD. It's with a PhD. It's pure-hearted devotion. Pure-hearted devotion. You turn to your Lord with pure-hearted devotion. Not with that languor. Okay? That we talked about earlier. It's when you are in the privacy of your chamber. It's when your heart is burning to talk to your Lord. That is when you turn and to your Lord with pure-hearted devotion. Okay, friends. At this time, I know, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Okay, friends. We're going to hear now a story of May Maxwell. Okay. Just shifting gears, and I wanted to share this with you because May Maxwell is an incredible heroine in the cause of God. And I wanted to share her story with the friends that may have not heard her story, and wanted for them to reflect on how, what she achieved. And also, this is another way that we're reflecting on their lives and can learn to implement their lives, how we can learn from their lives. Okay, without any further ado, friends, I'm sorry. I've talked quite a bit this evening to you, but there's so many wonderful either anecdotes or points that just wanted to share with you. And it's just the hour becomes pressing, and so here we are, friends. We'll go through this. Okay. The just words, the words always to remember, were cabled by Shoghi Effendi, Abdul Baha's beloved handmaid. Distinguished disciple May Maxwell is gathered into the glory of the Abha kingdom. Her earthly life, so rich, eventful, incomparably blessed, is worthily ended. To sacred tie her signal services had forged, the priceless honor of a martyr's death is now added. A double crown deservedly won. The 7-year plan, particularly the South American campaign, derive fresh impetus from the example of her glorious sacrifice. Southern outpost of faith greatly enriched through association with her historic resting place, destined remain a poignant reminder of the resistless march of the triumphant army of Baha'u'llah. Advise believers of both Americas to hold befitting memorial gathering. This was from the beloved Guardian, Shoghi Effendi, cablegram, March 3rd, 1940, published in Messages to America. Shoghi Effendi once said to her, May Maxwell, one night when he came to dinner in the Western Pilgrim House after our union, that had I, Rui Khanum, not been May Maxwell's daughter, he would have not married me. This does not mean it was not the only reason, but it was evidently a very powerful one. For in the cable he sent on 3rd March 1940, officially announcing her death, which had taken place 2 days before, he said, to sacred tie her signal services had forged priceless honor martyr's death now added. Double crown deservedly won. These words clearly indicate her relationship to his marriage. In a tablet of Abdul Baha to one of her spiritual children, he had written, her company uplifts and develops the soul. Until I came under the direct influence of the Guardian, through being privileged to be with him for over 20 years, I can truly say that my character, my faith in Baha'u'llah, and whatever small services I had so far been able to render him were entirely due to her influence. From these facts, it will be seen that when I arrived with my mother on my 3rd pilgrimage to Haifa in January 1937, the status of my father inside the faith can best be described as being Mrs. Maxwell's husband. That was from Amatul Baha Riyah Khanum in The Priceless Pearl. She was born in Englewood, New Jersey, January 14th, 1870, the daughter of John B. Bowles and Mary Martin Bowles, in descent American through many generations. Her early years were spent in the Englewood home of her maternal grandfather, a man distinguished in New York's banking world. She had one brother, Randolph, whom she loved deeply and whose attraction to the Baha'i faith, as evidenced in the last year before his death in 1939 by his translation into English of the French footnotes of Nabil, gave her supreme content. Even as a girl, her priceless qualities adorned her: a capacity for affectionate and enduring ties, an eagerness for truth which led her down many paths, laying the basis for an all-encompassing sympathy and an independent, original nature, alive to the susceptibilities of the kingdom. After 14 years, she accepted no formal schooling. I felt very distinctly there was another way of acquiring knowledge. Paris was early a pivot in her life's destiny. Its French, a lyric plastic tongue in which she often thought and felt. 2 visits as a child, including a period in a convent school, were followed by a residence of some 11 years, undertaken for Randolph's architectural studies at the École des Beaux-Arts. It was in 1898 of this sojourn that became forever memorable. The first foreshadowing reached her when, at 11 years of age, she experienced in her sleep a sunlight so brilliant that for one day her eyes were blinded. Again she dreamed that angels carried her through space. Seeing light, she found it was the earth, and the earth was marked with seals, and one word was on the earth. Of this she could read only the B and the H. But she knew then that these letters would transform her life. The Master himself came to her in a vision, a majestic figure in Eastern garb, beckoning her from across the Mediterranean with characteristic gesture. She thought he was Jesus, but 2 years later, when Lua heard, "This is Abdul-Baha," she said. Despite the beauty and comfort of her surroundings, and the warmth of her relation with mother and brother, these 3 were one in heart, one in soul, with a multitude of friends because of it. The Paris years were not altogether easy ones. Ill health then as always tested her, to which her husband has borne sufficient witness. May had courage, and her sublime faith inspired her to carry on, very frequently under a handicap of health that would have daunted others. This weakness chained her to her bed for 2 years before Lua's coming, and if later she recalled those months as preparation, the Master's words to her make clear the reason. The heart is made ready by all experience for the seat of life. Now your troubles are ended, and you must wipe away your tears. On its face, it was not unusual that Mrs. Phoebe Hurst, close family friend, should in November 1898 bring her party of American tourists to her apartment on the Quai d'Orsay, then occupied by Mrs. Bowles and her son and daughter and Mrs. Hurst's 2 nieces whom she chaperoned. The party was going up the Nile. Its startling mission went undisclosed. Only May sensed in Lua Getzinger a hidden fire, sought it out, believed, and through her passionate desire won the invitation of Mrs. Hurst to join this pilgrimage. They were the first Americans to go. Because of Abdul-Baha's imprisonment, they traveled to Haifa in small groups, of which one included May Bowles, Mrs. Thornborough, Ann Apperson, Miss Pearson, and Robert Turner. She reached her lord on February 17, 1899. Her own words record that imperishable story. Of that first meeting I can remember neither joy nor pain, nor anything that I can name. I'd been carried suddenly to too great a height. My soul had come in contact with the Divine Spirit, and this force so pure, so holy, so mighty had overwhelmed me. And when he arose and suddenly left us, we came back with a start to life. But never again, oh, never again, thank God, to the same life on this earth. When he had finished speaking, we were led gently away, and for a moment it seemed that we were dying, until as we drove away, suddenly his spirit came to us. A great strength and tranquility filled our souls. we had left our beloved in his glorious prison that we might go forth and serve him, that we might spread his cause and deliver his truth to the world, and already his words were fulfilled. The time has come when we must part, but the separation is only of our bodies. In spirit we are united forever. How truthful her record, how immeasurable the alteration of her life. None knew this better than Abdu'l-Baha, for as he adjured her mother, she was in a certain condition, and now she is in another. Yea, she has been human, but now she is divine. Earthly, but now heavenly. Mundane, but belonging now to the kingdom of God. Ali Kuli Khan has recalled that when visiting Akka in 1900, he was told of the American pilgrims. The highest praise given by the Master always centered upon May Bowles. Certain it is that her inertness was replaced by activity, her muteness by wonderful speech, and that upon returning to Paris, she began quietly with friends to convey her overwhelming experience. Her fellow believers had by now gone on to America, leaving her alone. I say alone. Mason Remy has exclaimed, May Bowles stood alone as a Baha'i, one frail woman in that vast metropolis, the heart of continental culture. Her task was to establish there a divine cause. Merely to register the names of those who, from 1899 to 1902, were drawn by her personal fascination, so fragile, so luminous, and the most delicate, perfect beauty, flower-like and star-like, and who through this spell attained to its origin in a rapturous love for Abdu'l-Baha, is to compel astonishment. The first to believe was Edith Mackay, and by the new year of 1900, Charles Mason Remy and Herbert Hopper were next to follow. Then came Marie Squires Hopper, Helen Ellis Cole, Laura Barney, Madame Jackson, Agnes Alexander, Thomas Breakwell, Edith Sanderson, and Hippolyte Dreyfus, the first French Baha'i. Imogen Hogg and Mrs. Connor had come to Paris in 1900 from America. Sigurd Russell, at 15, returned from Akka, a believer, and in 1901 the group was further reinforced by Juliet Thompson, Lillian James, and the frequent passing through Paris of pilgrims from America going to the Master, and then again returning from the Holy Land. These are but a few, for in 1901 and 1902, the Paris group of Baha'is numbered between 25 and 30 people, with May Bowles as a spiritual guide and teacher. Nor let us forget that this superlative achievement was one without literature, almost without knowledge, only a few prayers and the hidden words, and the heart's attachment to the Supreme Beloved, nourished and protected her teaching. What a bounty then to receive in 1901 the extended visit of Mirza Abul Fazl, sent by the Master to strengthen his Western children. For perhaps a month he taught them almost daily through the translations of Anton Haddad and Ali Kuli Khan. Of those memorable hours, Agnes Alexander has written, an atmosphere of pure light pervaded the Paris meetings. So much so that one was transported, as it were, from the world of man to that of God, to which Juliet Thompson's testimony is added. That Paris group was so deeply united in love and faith. May, Lua, Laura, and Khan, these four especially, so inspired, so carried away, so intoxicated with love for the beloved Master, our great teacher, Mirza Abul Fazl, so heavenly wise, that those days were the days of miracle, of all but incredible confirmations. We can but imagine the special joy which Lua's frequent presence must have brought, for May's devotion to her precious mother was constant to the last. Hers was the uncommon gift of discernment beneath every veil of flesh of the soul's hidden virtue, and her words written upon the news of Lua's death in 1916 bear eloquent witness to this power. Great and wonderful were her qualities. In her own person, she bore the sins and weaknesses of us all, and redeeming herself, she redeemed us. She broke the path through the untrod forest. She cast her soul and body into the stream and perished, making the bridge by which we cross. The passion of divine love that consumed her heart shall light the hearts of mankind forever and forever. Perhaps the most wondrous event of this fecund time was the confirmation of that brightest of spirits, Thomas Breakwell. Asked by Abdu'l-Baha to remain in Paris in the summer of 1901, despite her family's displeasure, May obeyed. Only thus could she respond when a friend brought to her door this youth of medium height, slender, erect, and graceful, with intense eyes and an indescribable charm. Although on their first meeting she did not mention her faith, he returned the next day in great agitation, having experienced a vision of Christ's presence on this earth. He was like a blazing light. Such was his capacity that he received the message in all its fullness and all its strength and beauty within 3 days. And on the 3rd day he wrote his supplication to Abdu'l-Baha, which in its force and simplicity I have never seen equaled. My Lord, I believe, forgive me. Thy servant, Thomas Breakwell. That evening I went to the Rue de Bac to get my mail, and there lay a little blue cablegram from Abdu'l-Baha. With what wonder and awe I read his words. You may leave Paris at any time. Yet even as we are touched by this account, and by the remembrance of one whom the Master could so address, O my beloved, O Breakwell, thou hast become a star in the most exalted horizon. Must we not also perceive the responsiveness of that instrument through whom he obtained his will? She was obedient not only in the matters affecting her faith. Her whole being, every attachment and every goal she placed with tender confidence at his disposal. I have not 2 lives but one, she wrote in 1934. The inner life of the cause, to which every outer thing and circumstance must adjust itself. So with her marriage, she delayed and consummated it at his desire. William Sutherland Maxwell, Scotch-Canadian of an old and established family of Montreal, and young student of architecture in the École des Beaux-Arts, met May Bowles through her brother not long after his arrival in October 1899. He was not a Baha'i. Indeed, he attended no meetings until 1902. After 17 months, he returned to Montreal to enter his profession, engaged to be married, but waiting upon the news of her readiness. This came at last. They were wed in London on May 8, 1902, and his patience, he himself has said, had an enduring recompense. O Paris, crossroads of the world, when has your history unfolded such mysterious tales? What mighty power caused this spot, heedless of the praise of God, to grow a fertile garden. See once the seeds of spring rooted in gifted hearts. See then these hearts bearing sweet fruits, dispersed to fecundate for never-ending harvests the countless nations, and were they not the choicest spirits flung by our generous Lord across his darkened planet, so to bestow upon all unregenerate, unlovely things the fragrance of attraction? O Paris, after 40 years we do affirm the Master's prayer went not unanswered. Fill their breasts with the boundless joy that blows as a breeze from thy kingdom of Abha, that they may be the miracles of thine appearance from the highest horizon. She was then 32 years old, when her fame hastening before, she returned to America. How can we at this distance penetrate the dislocation of her ways? Uprooted from dearest companions, from the Paris she adored, to come a bride to a far and alien land. Thou wert as pure gold, the Master wrote her, and didst enter the fire of test. Gird up thy loins, fortify thy back, arise, and with the strength of thy heart promote the word of God in that remote region. Yet she was ever a rootless creature, and for her neither time, nor space, nor the plans of men held real authority, a tendency much strengthened by Abdu'l-Baha's instruction. Time is a gross deception, she said, the measuring rod of our present captivity, and again the mortal cage is nothing. The soul's motion in relation to the beloved is the unfolding of all the meaning of life. Often in 1902, she reminded herself of that French heroine who, finding how unsubstantial was existence, had all her handkerchiefs embroidered, "À quoi bon?" And Louise Boche has vividly remembered, as often as I looked upon her and contemplated her attitude to life, and her disposition of it, I would distinctly feel that she was only visiting here. Ephemeral, this was her own term, but without struggle and without reproach. She knew well that the soul only grows and expands in an atmosphere of joy, and while this world seemed a fleeting shadow, yet it was irradiated with the splendor of her true, her heavenly home. This unquenchable joy she carried to Montreal, and planted as well in her earthly home. Though she departed 100 times, her letters are dated from Edgartown, Rye, Boston, New York, Arverne. Her heart turned always back with yearning, renewed in poignant memories. And with what wealth the years endowed these two. Montreal, mother city of Canada, the Maxwell home, center not only of the Baha'i friends, but of all the pilgrims who traveled that way during all their blessed lives together. Louise Boche, Ali Kuli Khan and Madame Khan, Lua Getzinger, Agnes Alexander, Zia Baghdadi and Zianat Khanum, sent by Abdu'l-Baha for their marriage in April 1914. Mason Remy and George Latimer, William H. Randall, Elizabeth Greenleaf, Janabe Fazel, Mother Beecher, Keith Ransom Keller, Ruhi Effendi, Martha Root, Emogene Hwag, Mabel Ives, illustrious names in our faith. All these and a host more were guests of Mr. and Mrs. Maxwell. Small wonder, then, that even from Bahji she should write, "I still long for you all who so live in my heart, and eagerly look forward to the hour when I shall meet you again, when we shall be together in a meeting of pure love and unity in the room where our beloved Lord sat with us, where his blessed name has been mentioned and his wonderful words have been read for so many years. One thing is clear, that wherever she traveled, the spirit of Abdul-Baha went there too. So potent was the force of his attraction on her heart, that she in turn became a magnet of love, drawing everyone to God. This alone was her method of teaching, the hidden source of her inimitable effect. The following passage comes from a letter of 1915. We must first touch the heart to awaken it. If it opens and responds, we must sow the priceless seed. Prepare the soil with the warmth of your love, just as the sun prepares the soil in the spring, or the seed would not grow. Remove the stones and weeds. That is to say, in a kind way, try to remove prejudices. Uproot narrow superstitions by suggesting broader, deeper ideas. Never oppose people's ideas and statements, but give them a little nobler way of seeing life. Such words and thoughts will take effect because they come from a Baha'i whose life flows from the source of all life on earth today. My great and wise teacher, Mirza Abul Fazl, laid down these divine principles of teaching in my soul, and they have changed all my attitude. He showed me that it is the Spirit of God that is doing the work. We must wait upon the Spirit and do its bidding only. So in this way the faith was sown in Montreal. By 1903, Sutherland Maxwell had become the first Canadian Baha'i, and shortly after his cousin, Martha McBean, followed him. Group meetings were then started and later regularly established. Soon Mary Constantine, Rose Henderson, and others unrecorded had been won. At the same time, through wide and active civic interests, the name of Mrs. Maxwell came to be distinguished among her fellow citizens. Prior to 1912, she supported a children's court for Montreal, and her efforts were chief in maintaining the Colborne Street Milk Station. Later, about 1914, she brought from New York a Montessori teacher, starting the first school of this type in Canada in her own home. It was through all this that I became interested in the movement for progressive education, of which I was particularly a charter member. Such sympathies were a solid base for the Master's triumphant welcome in 1912, for he found no antagonist and no adversary. But before this consummation, there came a bounty which must always be associated with the pilgrimage of February 1901. Not for 10 years had she visited Abdul-Baha, and though her name was often on his tongue, at this time Mirza Munir affirmed she was renowned in the East through his frequent mentions in tablets. Great was the pleasure in Akka on her return. That meeting of the Master and the ladies of his house Louise Boche had described, and from her, too, the tender greeting of the Holy Mother, first as a young girl, now with your husband, on your next visit you will come with your child. Blessed indeed were those 6 days. To them Abdul-Baha referred in 1911 and 1913. Thy utmost desire was to have a child, for whom thou hast prayed and supplicated while in Akka. Praise be to God, that the prayer is answered, and thy desire realized. In the garden of existence a rose has blossomed with the utmost freshness, fragrance, and beauty. I beg of God that this little child may become great and wonderful in the divine kingdom. Now he's coming and will be here about the middle of next week, and I hope that nothing in this world will prevent your being here. The months I spent near Abdu'l-Baha in New York have done more for the education and enlightenment of my heart and conscience than all my life's experience. After 5 months in the United States, the Master was coming to Montreal. He had accepted their invitation despite his friends' forebodings, and late on the night of August 30th, 1912, the Maxwells and Louise Bosch met his train from Boston. He went directly to her home, for 4 days lavishing his presence before moving to the Hotel Windsor. The columns of the Montreal Daily Star had for a week been heralding his great event, and during those memorable days, the best publicity of his American stay, he said, ensured a permanent record of his words. In hours of grave concern to Canada, of threatening conflict and burdensome armaments, the predictions of this apostle of peace, of an appalling war, were headlined to the city. Besides daily interviews with groups and individuals, Abdu'l-Baha made 7 public lectures. His first was for morning service at the Church of the Messiah on September 1st. On the 3rd, he outlined for 500 socialites at Coronation Hall, vividly, completely, Baha'i principles for the economic happiness of the human race. His last address drew 1,200 listeners to St. James Methodist Church on September 5th. 4 talks were given in the Maxwell home, and many who were there heard him were believers, while others became so. Her share was strenuous in this historic sojourn, for she made the major part of his arrangements, but he accorded her immortal praise in the tablet to Canada, and the results in the future are inexhaustible. Abdu'l-Baha touched no other point in Canada. Rather, he hoped that his time in Montreal might so stir that city that the melody of the kingdom may travel to all parts of the world. Do ye not look upon the smallness of your numbers, he forbade them. 1 pearl is better than 1,000 wilderness of sand, especially this pearl of great price, which is endowed with divine blessing. And to May Maxwell he gave a special charge, sending in her care his 2 mighty tablets to this nation. The first was received in the fall of 1916, and she, together with the 4 who stood in like relation to the other regions of America, was henceforth known to the American Baha'is as a center for the spread of the divine plan. How mysterious is this cause! The secret energies released by these mother words seem to have enveloped the 8th Convention, April 1916, with a sublime intuition. In the very month of the Master's enunciation, the banner of oneness must be unfurled in those states. She voiced the oneness of the world of humanity in so wonderful a way that one might well have thought our beloved Abdu'l-Baha was using her to convey a message to the convention. It was not the first nor the last time that her searching spirit, restless and ablaze with the fire of the love of God, resuscitated the delegates in their sessions. She attended a majority of conventions, often as Montreal's representative, and although on too many occasions her health's debility restrained her, she would appear, as Mabel Ives has said, at occasional moments on the floor of the convention, raising such a lofty call that a new and high level was set of understanding and devotion. Does this amaze us? No, rather we should recall the Master's characterization. May Maxwell is really a Baha'i. She breathed no breath and uttered no word save in service to the cause of God. Whosoever meets her feels from her association the susceptibilities of the kingdom. Her company uplifts and develops the soul. For her gift, her most exceptional gift, was teaching. Every activity emanated from this source, and every new heart roused to life owed with what inexpressible gratitude its varying being to her touch. It was not always her role to instruct the inquirer. This she could do with matchless charm. Rather, for countless Baha'is, she unlocked a hidden treasure for which they long had searched. "Pray for me, May," wrote Keith in 1923. "It is my only refuge. Through this bitter storm of trial, in which every attribute of life is obscure or withdrawn, you will stand a dazzling presence on the further shore toward which I struggle, a gift and evidence lent me by the Master." And Keith, like others, acknowledged that such bestowal was spiritual motherhood. This priceless and overflowing quality of the heart, in Roland Estelle's words, was by no means specialized to her contemporaries. She was captured by the mystery of the eternal stream of life flowing through the generations, whether in Montreal, New York, Greenacre, California, Portland, Vancouver, Stuttgart, Paris, or Lyon. Her perception of the pure, fragrant, living force of the rising generation under the shadow of Shoghi Effendi drew to her many youthful spirits, for she was irresistible in a way most vividly portrayed by her own daughter. Many people inspire more or less love in others, but I don't think I ever knew anyone who inspired the love Mother did, so that it was like an event when one was going to see her, and this I felt all my life, day in and day out, and it never became commonplace. The Montreal Youth Group, so justly celebrated since 1927, profited immeasurably by her support. As Mr. Estelle has said, every one of the young Baha'is is either sought out by her company to receive the benefit of her wise counsel and mature knowledge, or were befriended by her and experienced the privilege of her loving friendship and generosity. Nor was this of a small import, since she influenced from the inception of that group such ones as George Spendlove, Roland Estelle, Emmerich and Rosemary Salah, Teddy Edwards Alizad, Norman McGregor, Judy Russell Blakely, Dorothy and Glenn Wade, Edward Dewing, Gerard Slutter, David Hoffman, Rena Gordon, naming only some, each to become in turn an instrument of potent teaching. Indeed, her sympathizers recognize no bounds. Oh, there is no separateness. It is only the sin. And again, if we knew the reality, the mystery of oneness, we should be standing in the full light of God, and we should all be to each other an inexhaustible source of life, strength, healing, joy, and blessedness. This theme she did not speak idly. Around it all her actions flowed with a fullness tenderly remembered by friends of every kind and background. Generous beyond any record, she gave it unstintingly to the temple and to the furtherance of teaching work, for charity, for relieving sorrow and distress, generous too in courage and beyond assault, how keenly she championed the neglected cause or labored to reinforce the underprivileged race. Through all the years of an undeviating service to the faith on the North American continent, from 1902 until 1940, years which only to some future biographer shall yield the vast heroic scope of her efforts, she bore to her fellow believers, whether in local or national community, a unique, a spiritual relationship. Mother of the Latin races, she has been titled no such more Mother of yearning hearts in every spot she ever visited. And this relation was hers in special measure to Canada. The tablets of the divine plan released in her an impetus which never faltered. In 1916 she journeyed with Grace Ober to the far northeast. She taught also with Mary and Jack, and after 1920 with Elizabeth Greenleaf. St. John's, Brockville, Ottawa, Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver, all were cities in which, like unto a gardener, she brought forth growth through the outpourings of the cloud of guidance, heaping up piles of crops and harvests. The Spiritual Assembly of Vancouver was the direct result of her stay in July 1926. It would take an angel, Gabriel, to blare forth her work. Yet she was never content for a moment, not even for a moment. The merciful God alone can estimate our failure, she wrote, but only He could estimate as well the triumph of her dauntless spirit over every handicap. Of all the tributes the Master pierces us with the sweetest emphasis, Thy Lord shall strengthen thee in a matter whereby the queens of the world will envy thy happy state throughout all times and ages, because verily the love of God is as glorious crown upon thy head, the brilliant jewels of which are glittering forth unto all horizons. Its brilliancy, transparency, and effulgence shall appear in future centuries, when the signs of God will be spread and the word of God will encompass the heart of all the peoples of the earth. The current of her existence knew no ebb, but mounted strongly from the first vital contact with Abdu'l-Baha, through all the years of his world-creating mission. Beneath the pain and oppression of his passing, into the full tide of the guardianship, and for almost 2 decades she was to serve Shoghi Effendi with that same eager, steadfast concentration which always singled her out above her generation. Nothing is too great to suffer for him, no daily discipline, no effort or sacrifice, no surrender of all that is upon this earth. So in August 1935, arrested by his appeal to the American believers to turn toward Europe, and preceded by her daughter and dear relatives, Ruhanges and Jian Bowles, she with her husband left America. It was to be a brief visit. In reality, she did not return for 2 years. She did not return until her prayer uttered in 1934, "There has revived in me life's deepest yearning, to tread that path white with the bones of the slain," had found a burning answer. No faintest suspicion, however, of Rhea Khanum's destiny, nor of that sacred tie which was to crown her signal services, interrupted the vigor with which she pressed her teaching in Germany, Belgium, and France. Already to her eyes, the old world had become a veritable graveyard. It is appalling to be among so many dead, moving dust. We see them here. The mental, moral, and spiritual atmospheric pressure is stifling, for the dark forces completely envelop the world, seeking to enter every mind and cloud or crush it. Coming over here and working in Europe is like being borne along on a stream almost without volition, entirely without plan. Through the directing hand of the guardian, how he is combing the world for his jewels before the end. Sometimes alone, sometimes with others of her family, she pursued this goal, seeking to recognize and free from a besetting lethargy those hearts known only to Baha'u'llah. She taught first in certain German centers, acquiring in Munich and Stuttgart an admiration for this profoundly interesting country and its people, which was to be immensely strengthened when in August 1936 she returned from the Esslingen summer school, and to make at Shoghi Effendi's request a grand tour of the German Baha'i communities. Thus she was part of that thrilling final session at Esslingen. All international barriers were broken down, and there was a oneness of spirit, a joyous companionship when reached a climax with the reading of the Guardian's cablegram containing his passionate appeal to America. She worked intensively in Brussels too, from October 1935 until in the following April she visited Lyon to assist Mirza Izzatullah Sabah, the Persian Baha'i, in whose home our beloved Keith passed from this world. Characteristically, she had left Brussels for a few days at Christmas to attend the 6th annual conference of Baha'i students in Paris, because they gave me the opportunity to speak on the activities of the young American Baha'is. For France gave me the opportunity to speak on the activities of the young American Baha'is. For France, she still retained that heavenly gift with which the Master had endowed her, as in their immortal early years, again for several months in 1909, so now during this and later sojourns. Elle forfait les Baha'i in leur croyant et attirée d'autres aimer à la cause parler d'animisme de sa foi par la clarté de son esprit. Apologize, my French is not too good. Yet brilliantly as she shone in every field, all was eclipsed this spring of 1936. April to June, in the city of Lyon. The outer facts are recorded with surpassing modesty. Meetings held every Thursday for a group of 10 or 15. A special meeting begun for the study of Baha'i administration, for which Lyon was virgin soil. The first 19-day feast perhaps ever held in France. A study group initiated for young people, and through the medium of the law of God for this age, their understanding and faith grew stronger and deeper. Thus she wrote of Lyon. She prayed for martyrdom in the holy shrines, and her Lord in his mercy gave her 2 replies. And her feet walked no other path from the day of her daughter's marriage. Sublime, unguessed event. How far our empty concepts are surpassed. Her sensibilities escape us. The winging gratitude, the pain, its surcease, the heart's ineffable and boundless joy. Should we say only this? Her home was Haifa. She never greeted Ria Khanum again from May of 1937, nor did she again experience, after 5 months of blessed visit, the Guardian's immediate revitalizing force. Yet in a deeper sense, she lived there, hour by hour, to her last day. There was a time that I agonized with a mother's weakness and instinctive protection over the terrific deprivation in all her outer human ways, and the austere discipline of the life of my child. It is she herself, combined with a ray of common sense of my own, who taught me the Spartan spirit of that Persian mother who threw back the head of her martyred son to his executioner, and as I have witnessed from year to year the profound and mystic change in Rui Khanum, I have marveled at the grace of God and his delicate and perfect handiwork. The depths of consciousness to which her life, so rich, so eventful, incomparably blessed, had gradually accustomed her, came to exert upon her American friends. From the first moment of return in September 1937, an elusive, all-compelling, wonderful effect, she moved among us then a spirit of purest light, a symbol of faithfulness, a fountain of celestial power. Her wisdom and devotion were like newly discovered springs of sweet water. To be near her was to have one's soul forever altered. In December and January 1940, she traveled and taught with Mr. Maxwell in New York, Englewood, Washington, and Philadelphia. On New Year's Eve, with Mason Remy, they celebrated together his confirmation in Paris 40 years before. Her earthly book approached its close. There remained but one brief triumphant chapter. South America had grown real to her in 1928 through Francis Stewart, whom she tenderly regarded as its soul, and for 12 years these two nourished a relation which strengthened each in service to this vast continent. She did not think to go there, however, until the Guardian's dynamic call had stirred the American community to settle its countries with pioneers and attract its nationals at home through brilliant teachings. She was immediately captivated. Her constant topic of conversation was the cause in South America. Her questions to me were inexhaustible. Never can I forget the light that illumined her face as I told her stories of the individual friends. Her spirit was at that of a little child in her enthusiasm, and South America gradually grew to be her field, white with the harvest. This she mentioned to her daughter. You can well imagine my astonishment when a cable instantly came back in which the Guardian said he heartily approved winter visit to Buenos Aires. She lost no time securing the consent of her husband and physician. She sailed January 24th, 1940, on the SS Brazil with her precious niece, Jeannie Boyles. The voyage, the climate, the splendid personal contacts, the new and handsome cities of Rio de Janeiro, Montevideo, and Buenos Aires, all these elated her. She was able to teach one lovely woman on the boat, the wife of a distinguished army man. In Rio de Janeiro, with the aid of Leonora Holsapple, who had come from Bahia, she arranged the 2 teas at her hotel. The Gloria, one for 19 guests, while a third meeting was held at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Lee Worley. She spoke also to the president of the Homeopathic College. Yet despite these 2 weeks of exhilarating success, she was eager to reach Buenos Aires. She seemed to press forward every minute of the way from Rio. They arrived on February 27th. After one-day stops in Santos and Montevideo, I am thrilled to be here in Buenos Aires, she wrote. A strong and beautiful modern city, and an interesting combination of North and South America with an enchanting climate and delightful people. As we drove through the streets, precious Aunt May was like a girl of 16 in her joyous enthusiasm. She leaned out of the taxi and exclaimed words of delight. On the night of February 29th, they dined alone in her room at City Hotel, in thought transported to Haifa through Riri Khanum's poignant account of the burial on Mount Carmel of the Master's illustrious mother and brother, and she received by telephone the first Baha'i welcome to Buenos Aires. Her mood was radiant, but the next morning a terrible pain came in her breast, and though the doctor reassured them both, by afternoon the will of God took her from our midst. It was a long vigil which Gianni kept, like an angel from heaven, without replies to her cables, from Friday to Sunday. But she was not alone, for the Kevorkians and Arsen, Pohangarian, Syrian Baha'is were in Buenos Aires, and they were soon joined by Elizabeth Norse, Wilfrid Barton, Simon Rosenweg from Montevideo. Together on March 3rd, they gave her temporary rest in the English cemetery. Simon writes that it was an experience to wrench any heart when all the conditions were considered, and a great mystery. Priceless honor of a martyr's death, such was the Guardian's imperishable tribute, and to Mr. Maxwell he cabled, Her tomb designed by yourself, erected by me on a spot she fought, fell gloriously, will become historic center, pioneer Baha'i activity. Laden with the fruits garnered through well nigh half a century of toilsome service to the cause, she so greatly loved, heedless of the warnings of age and ill health, and afire with the longing to worthily demonstrate her gratitude, in her overwhelming awareness of the bounties of her Lord and Master, she set her face towards the southern outpost of the faith in the New World, and laid down her life in such a spirit of consecration and self-sacrifice as had truly merited the crown of martyrdom. They buried her then at Quilmes, a befitting spot discovered by patient search of Jeannie and Wilfrid Barton. At noon of March 13th, sped by the prayers of 11 believers of Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia, Syria, and the United States, and by the Master's thrilling chants recorded so long ago, and now first voiced in South America for his own beloved handmaiden. Her precious form sought its eternal resting place. While in her home in Montreal at that same hour, the memorial was held by cherished friends. Yet May Maxwell lives, adorable, rarest spirit, and her children around the world have given up their weeping to follow her in the resistless march. From some rampart of heaven, 3 heroines look down, Martha, May, and Keith. Their shining traces will cheer us through whatever trials may come. The promise of their aid stands guard above our destinies. And friends, that was a glimpse into the life of May Maxwell. Thank you, friends, for our time today. Today we covered connecting to our hearts, to the Word of God, and we covered also the essential requisites for spiritual growth. And in closing, we covered the life of May Maxwell. Wishing everyone an enjoyable end to our wonderful conference, and wishing everyone safe travels home. Thank you so much, dear friends. Thank you.